All right, I would like to welcome Alex MacPhail to tell us all about the latest and greatest from WildTrax.
Great, thanks, Sid, and thanks for joining everybody today. Really excited and thrilled to show everybody the new features and functionalities that are going to allow you to bring some of the ultrasonic data that you might have into the WildTrax network. Of course, this wouldn't have been possible without the tireless effort of everyone on the WildTrax development team, as well as all of our partners and sponsors who would have made this possible. So I'd like to thank everybody there before we get started. So for those of you who are not familiar yet, WildTrax is a web-based platform designed to support a large range of services from data management, storage, processing, sharing, and ultimately discovery. And the system is broken up into three different sensor types: autonomous recording units, or ARUs, remote cameras, and avian point counts, which are all harmonized within the system, allowing for an unprecedented and unique experience in multimodal or multi-sensor data management. WildTrax is also a member of a larger open network of data, such as Canavian. This is a partnership between the Boreal Avian Modeling Project, Birds Canada, and WildTrax, as an example. Open networks of data and data sharing approaches to open data present a vision that we all abide by, where data collectors can easily input high quality data and data users can discover, access, and work with these data sets together. And so through the various partnerships and collaboration and coordination among participants and users, WildTrax aims to help to provide these tools that will help to facilitate open data. And this is hoping to create a flexible system that can adapt to evolving data collection practices and the needs of various users, from field collectors to decision makers. And so as a result, what we like to do is to bring in all different types of data that we can, such as integrating ultrasonic data. So for the use, this platform is currently free, and membership is role-based through an email account, which allows you to be a user within the system with various privileges, which we'll get into during our demonstration today. So since WildTrax was launched in 2018, we've seen many, many different changes, lots of development, but most recently a large uptake of new users and new data from across the country, but also growing internationally as well. As more data is published within the system, researchers and partners have the ability to more easily access and integrate these larger data sets. And so through the addition of hundreds of thousands of survey locations that now exist within the system, we're increasingly making it simpler for users to easily publish their data in order to make it accessible to both the scientific and non-scientific community. So really you can go from your raw media to species detections to project publication and allow you to share and publish the data across the WildTrax network. And so these are just some numbers that you can see that are currently within the system, and the green percentage signs on the right are just showing you the increase in all of those different parts of the system since March 2022. So as a quick kind of reminder of what we've done for development over this past year, in spring 2022, we launched phase 6 of WildTrax, which included some very important pieces of the system, which we'll be looking through and talking about today, but mainly on the course of integrating acoustic species verification into WildTrax with the integration of BirdNet, the development of a user settings dashboard, which includes site-wide French language support, some enhancements to project and location management, such as the increase in the visibility settings for locations, as well as the ability to configure and set different location parameters at the project and organization level. And of course, public data release, which is beginning to link the Canavian network together. And so if you visit the point count sensor, you can see a whole bunch of different projects that have been supplied by the Boreal Avian Modeling Project. But today we're here to talk about Ultrasonic, which is our phase 7 release, which just happened this fall. And so with the release of phase 7, we've seen increased support for the acoustic sensor, which includes, of course, ultrasonic data management processing. And we hope that this will help to broaden the platform to be much more inclusive of vocalizing biodiversity, so that taxa such as the little brown bat or small mammals like deer or mice don't get overlooked in different biodiversity monitoring programs. With the development of the ultrasonic sensor, we've also expanded and customized the user's ability to control the spectrogram and some audio settings dynamically. And this is going to vastly improve data processing speed when targeting specific taxa that you're interested in. Furthermore, species assignments and species verification enhancements are allowing you to expand your tool set of data quality control options. Species assignments will help you to control what data makes it into your project, and species verification allows you to help to proof and batch proof all of the tags that you produce, while also generating clips for future development into automated recognition and classifiers. So for today's webinar, what we'll be walking through are the current steps that exist and the workflow for ultrasonic data processing in WildTrax. So we're going to start by creating an organization and uploading data and creating projects and discussing the features and functionalities that allow WildTrax to be both dynamic and support ultrasonic data. We'll then do a brief demonstration of how to upload tags that derive from the outputs of a classification software. And so to highlight this, WildTrax itself does not contain any recognizers or classifiers. It is currently a repository for all of the media and a way for you to share all of the ultrasonic media that you've collected and manage it as well. So from there, we'll look at how you can bring those classifier tags and set up tasks and tags within WildTrax. But we won't spend any time discussing how to use the actual classification software itself. We can definitely share some excellent resources after this presentation that will help you to fit that piece of the puzzle and the workflow. So before we get into the demo today, just keep in mind that WildTrax is always developing new features and functionalities. If there's something that doesn't exist, or you have a question, or you need some more information, please email info@wildtrax.ca, and we'll help to direct any questions that you may have about the platform. And if you're encountering any bugs or issues, please feel free to kindly report them to support@wildtrax.ca. This is if something's not working that you expect it to work, or something's gone wrong, please feel free to email us at any time and we can help you out with that. And as I mentioned, none of this work for Phase 7 would have been possible without our partners and sponsors, especially those from Environment Climate Change Canada, PTAC, Alberta Environment and Parks, Parks Canada, and the University of Alberta, among some of them that spent a lot of time developing some of the backbone towards all of the ultrasonic things that we're going to look at today. So I'll stop the share for a second, and I'm just going to reset and start talking a little bit more about WildTrax now. So as I mentioned, what we're going to do today is a full workflow towards how to actually get and process ultrasonic data into the WildTrax system. So we're going to start by creating an organization, getting everything set up properly, working on the data upload, and then we'll touch on the new ultrasonic features and how to actually complete a project and get your data published. And I'm just going to reset my share here for one moment so y'all can see this a little better here. Great. So if you, again, haven't visited WildTrax before, you can open up any web browser and type in wildtrax.ca, which will bring you down to the homepage. And we're going to walk through all the first steps in order to create an organization to get set up using WildTrax for the first time. So as I mentioned, you log into WildTrax using an email account, and this allows you to have a role within the system. And that role will then allow you to have privileges, which we'll discuss throughout the various points in the workflow that we'll discuss today. You can log into the system using a Google authorized account or a username and password. Once you log in, your name will appear in the top right corner of the ribbon, which will actually allow you to see your user settings now. And so before you start using the system, you can change your name, apply a set of initials, choose whether or not you want to subscribe to the newsletters, which come out during our phase releases, or if you're a Francophone user, you can switch to French as well. So the first step in getting data within the WildTrax system is to create an organization. So in the top ribbon, I've just gone to My Data and My Organizations, and I'm going to create a new organization on this button here. So for the time being, I'm just going to give a quick acronym to this organization for today's presentation. So we'll just call this BATS for the time being, and we'll just give this a quick full name as well to this organization. There are a few other fields that you must complete in order to create an organization, mainly the storage location, which where you want to store your media. And currently we have two places that are currently supported by Amazon Web Services with nodes in Oregon and Montreal. So if you'd like your data to stay in Canada, you would choose the Montreal option. However, the speed at which the data is being uploaded and recovered from WildTrax will also depend on your physical location to the server. So if you're wishing for a faster connection and you're perhaps on the West Coast and you don't care about your data not being in Canada, then you could choose the Oregon option, and this would speed up data transfers. So we'll choose the Montreal option for the time being, and we're going to leave all these buffered location settings the way they are at the moment. However, I just wanted to point out that at the organization level, you can do a lot of different things when it comes to controlling defaults for some of the location information in your organization. So this could be buffering all of your locations if you choose to. You can allow location reports. You can also opt in or out to image blurring on photos that you upload within your organization. And you can also set the default image access to some visit photos that you upload. And these are photos that you take at locations during visits, which are effectively photos of the habitat or sites where you're collecting data. And we'll make these just private images for the time being. So once I save my organization, it'll be sent for approval, and it will just require a WildTrax administrator to approve your identity before your organization is created. But once that's done, you can get started using the system. I'll really quickly jump into an organization to see what it looks like when it's blank. But the idea here is that within the organizations, you're going to be able to manage all of your locations, visits, equipment coming from the environmental sensors, as well as have a map of all of the locations that are currently housed within your organization. Now, because I don't have any media within the system yet, I don't have two other tabs which are related to the recordings and the image sets, but these will be populated shortly once we create a project, which is what we're going to do right now. So my organization is ready. Now I can go down the ladder here and create a project. So I'm going to go to my projects now. And if you can see the little Canada J on the page, you know you're in the right place. And now you can start by creating an ARU project. So the ultrasonic data is included within the ARU projects, given that all of these data are derived from autonomous recording units, or ARUs. So I'm going to start by creating an ARU project, and I'm going to walk you through some of the really important steps about what it means to create a project within WildTrax, especially when it's related to the ultrasonic and BAT side of things. So we'll do a little project title for the time being here. We'll call this BAT webinar. We're going to assign it to that organization that we just created. And this is a very important step because a project can only be associated to one organization and one only. And once you've done that, all of the data that you're going to upload and manage are all going to be associated to that organization. So it's very important that you choose the organization, or it's very important when you create a project, you choose the correct organization it's going to be associated to. Some other fields here can be used to populate some more further information, such as the due date of the project, if you'd like transcribers to have a timeline for when they would be producing data by, a data source, so where this data is derived from. More importantly, a purpose and methods and the results summary fields are very handy so that when the project does get published, users and other folks in the system know what the purpose of the project was and what results were found from them. Now, within the ARU project options box here, you're going to see a whole bunch of different fields. And these are some new features that we've implemented as far as the ultrasonic and dynamic spectrograms are concerned. So what you see here are all of the default settings that you can use to generate spectrograms automatically when they're processed within tasks. So as you can see here, the current default that my spectrograms are going to be generated at are from 0 to 12,000 hertz, so a normal sonic range. The default X scale here is just telling you how much time is going to be viewed on the spectrogram. If I increase this X scale, it's going to shorten the time that I see on the spectrogram. So a 10-second X scale corresponds to about 1 second in time. And if I lower this X scale value, it's going to increase the time that I see on the spectrogram. So 0.25x corresponds to about 60 seconds. So the point here is that you can look at a longer time range of spectrogram if you'd like, so say 60 seconds or so, or a shorter time range of spectrogram, depending on what species you're targeting and what signals you're looking for. We're just going to set this at the default 1x for the moment. The next setting that we have here is the Y scale. So this is, again, another setting that you can change dynamically with spectrograms. So instead of changing the time scale, which is the x-axis of the spectrogram, we're going to now change the frequency band, so how tall we can see the spectrogram. So if you'd like, you can increase it to approximately 2,000 pixels high, which will be the majority of your screen if you have a normal size screen. However, on a regular 15 to 17-inch screen, 244 pixels is a nice Y size to use. Finally, a couple other settings you can apply here. If you are a black and white kind of spectrogram person, you can switch this to the default, which will default it to monochrome. Switching this off will allow you to have colored spectrograms. And then the default light versus dark mode will allow you to switch between dark and light colors on the spectrogram, both in color and in black and white. So once I've set all of the parameters that I think I want for my project, I can click next. And the wizard will now take me into the next window, which is my species assignment. So within this window, you see two panels here. One is the species names, and the other one is what is going to be included in the project here. So right now, I don't have any species that are included in the project, so I'm going to add them from this left side panel here. So you can search these species by common or scientific name, and you can also search them within the species, class, or order. So for today's presentation, if we wanted to simply look for all of the bats that are currently housed within WildTrax, I could search by order Chiroptera, and this is going to give me all of the bats that you can currently create tags for within the system. Now, if you're not sure which species to use, or you're looking for a set of species that are more inclusive of an entire geographic range, what we have now are these preset groups. So if I click show presets, what you can do is go within this field and you can find all of the different presets that currently exist within the ARU sensor. So I could select all ARU species. I could select all bats. If I was perhaps doing a bird project instead, I could select all birds or all amphibians. But as you click through, you can get more and more precise about which species you want to include within your project. So here I'm just going to select the bats of Alberta and click confirm. And this is only going to add the species that are inclusive of the bats of Alberta within this list here on the side. Now, there's a couple other things I want to add into my project here, just so for demonstration. A lot of bat classifier and bat classifier outputs come with a no ID or an unknown bat category. So I'm going to add this one into my project manually. And you can see this ability to add preset groups of species, but also customize the groups of species that you want to use for your project by adding them individually if they don't exist in the preset. One other category I'm going to use is the noise category. So this is if no ID was made and no bat species identified, there is going to be this noise option as well that I'm going to add as a species. Okay, so I've got all my species added that I'm interested in for my project. So I can see everything here. And these will be the only species that you'll be able to tag for this project as well. So that way you wouldn't accidentally, tag a muley deer or a cicada, for example, if you don't have them added in your project. To remove any species that you don't want included in the list, you can either click them individually or select all, and then click the back arrow to add them or to exclude them again from the project. So once I've chosen all my species and I click next, the last step in setting up my project is my user assignment. So as I mentioned before, users are based on email addresses and they're role-based within the system. And these roles, as you can see here at the project level, include both a read member and an administrator. So a user that you want to add as an administrator into your project would be somebody you're looking to manage the project, upload data, edit tags, publish the project ultimately. And so they're going to be kind of like your project manager with both read and write privileges to all of the data within the project. That being said, a read-only member can see everything within the project, but they can't edit everything. So this would be somebody that you would want to add as a collaborator, or perhaps somebody you would want to share the data with, but you don't want to give them privileges to write to any of the data in the project. So as you can see here, you can search for the different list of users. So if I wanted to find somebody, I could filter search them and I would find all of the Alexes within the system. But for the time being, I'm just going to keep myself as a user. Once that's done, my project can be created finally. And then once that's done, you'll see it here on the project dashboard. If you want edit any of the information in the project, you can click the crayon icon and return to anything here, or you can enter the project by clicking on the name. All right, so now we've got our project all set up. We're pretty much ready to go now to at least get the data within the system. So what we're going to do next is upload media into WildTrax. So the idea here is that these are going to be recordings that have come from an autonomous recording unit and that you're uploading into the system in order to manage this data. And there's going to be a couple of things you're going to do during this upload process, which I'll show you right now. So I'm going to go to manage in my project and click upload recordings to project. And you'll see there's some upload settings that you can select right at the get-go here. Now with the ultrasonic recordings specifically, and the ones that are coming from bat recordings, for the majority of the recordings that are collected, these recordings are called what are called triggered recordings. So they only turn on when a certain threshold is being triggered, and then the recorder turns on, records what it hears, and then turns off again subsequently. This is different from typical schedule-based recordings, which are when the ARU turns on at a regular schedule for 10 minutes, records those 10 minutes, and then turns off again, and then perhaps records the next hour for 10 minutes. So we call those schedule-based recordings. So if your recordings that you're uploading into the system are trigger-based, you'll want to check this box here, because what this will allow you to do is label that media as triggered rather than schedule-based. There's a few other options here that you can use as well, such as removing leading zeros in your location names. And if you want to pre-scan the files for your sample rate and duration, you can do that as well. However, keep in mind that checking this pre-scan box will slow down your uploads a little bit because it's looking for the sample rate and duration of all the recordings as well. The other options here you can see are related to task settings. So as I mentioned before, certain schedule-based recordings have a defined length, or perhaps a defined length that you wish to process them with. So for example, a 3-minute recording over a 10-minute recording, a 5-minute recording, these are all kind of standard lengths of recordings that might be used. However, given that the recordings that we're going to be uploading today are trigger-based and they vary in different lengths, we're actually going to leave this field blank for the time being, because what this is going to do is upload the entire length of the recording as a task, which is what we'd like to see with these trigger-based ultrasonic recordings. Okay, so we're going to leave this field blank here for the time being. And the other one we can choose here is the method type. You can actually click down on this drop down if you come to the uploads recording panel, and it'll explain the 3 different method types that exist within WildTrax. But the idea is that method type is just allowing you to restrict how many tags you can make for a specific individual in each task in a project. And so this is so if you wanted to tag a species individual once and only once, if you tried to tag it again, the species would be restricted in this one SPT method. So I'll let folks kind of explore this a little bit on their own, as it depends on sort of the study design and the different objectives of your project and the goals of your project, but we do offer these 3 different method types available as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is just choose my folder to upload my files to, and I'm going to switch my screen share here for a moment so you can see what I'm doing. So we'll just share the whole desktop here. So what I'm going to do is choose a folder to upload, and I've got one pre-cooked here for you guys for today. But the idea is just that we're going to have these different recordings, and as you can tell by the file size, they are different lengths and different sizes. So this is what I'm talking about when I say trigger-based recordings that are different lengths and different sizes. So we don't want to define how long the length is. We just want to take the native length of that recording. So I'm going to upload this folder of files here. And if you didn't notice, there were some CSVs in there, but WildTrax is going to ignore anything that it's not going to think is a media file. So if you do decide to have text files or anything else mixed in with your media, it's not a big deal. WildTrax will always only find the media. Now, a couple of new features that we've implemented as well during the upload process is the ability to upload spatial locations while you do your media as well. And this is a fantastic new feature, because if you are uploading new media into the system and you want to give it some spatial coordinates right away, you can do that. So for the time being, I'll just give it a kind of a false latitude and longitude here, somewhere in Alberta, I hope. And what this will do is just automatically tell you what the spatial coordinates of this location are going to be. And to point out in a little bit more detail, well, where did that bat123 location come from? How is that the name of the location? Well, this comes from the media files. So as you can see here, this is a standard wildlife acoustics audio file format where you have the recording date and time here at the end. And then the first part of the file prefix is going to be the location, which you program into the unit. And a location, for those of you who do or don't know about in WildTrax, this is just a physical geographic place on the landscape where data has been collected. And this gets stripped from your media names when you upload data into the system automatically. Okay, so I've added a spatial coordinate, which is fantastic. I'm at least going to know where this thing is in space now. And just before I upload my recording, it's going to give me one last window where I can confirm the files that I want to upload. So if, for example, I forgot to add that these were triggered, I could check that box after the fact. If I wanted to change the method at any point, I could do that as well before I upload my files. I can also change the length of the file if I want to before I upload it. So these are all things you can just double check and confirm before you actually want to upload your media into the system. If you want to, you can completely cancel that file as well and just uncheck it from the upload box. Okay, so I'm going to upload these recordings into the system now, and we'll just let that go. Should be pretty quick. Bang, so 10 files uploaded into the system. And because I'm uploading these recordings into a project, what I'm doing is I'm also generating tasks at the same time. So what is a task exactly, you might ask? Well, when you're in a project and you see this row of data right here, this is effectively what a task is. And a task is just a unique combination of a recording, which is this location and recording date, a method, so how you're processing the recording and how long you're processing the recording for, and the observer, so who is processing the recording. Now with WildTrax, what you can do is generate tasks from different observers using different methods for the same recording that you upload into the system. So for example, if I processed a recording, someone else could process the same recording as me, and we could compare the observations between those two observers. So just to highlight that a task can be a unique combination of method, observer, and a recording within the system, so you can repeat recordings and do different methods on recordings. Okay. So we have our ultrasonic data now piped into the system. Let's take a look and see what we got. So the idea here is that I can then click this recording and it's going to generate that spectrogram based on the parameters that I used by default at the project level. So at the project level, these were the settings that I chose to use. And you can see here, because this is an ultrasonic recording, I can't see anything from 0 to 12 because I'm not currently in the ultrasonic range. So let's change that. So in the processing page here, I have two options where I can change this. I can either go to manage and change it in audio settings, or I can click the gear icon just below the spectrogram. And this will also display a suite of audio settings that I can change and parameterize depending on the audio data that I'm uploading into the system. So because, as I mentioned, this is ultrasonic, let's go to an ultrasonic range, shall we? So let's start at 22,000 minimum hertz, and we'll jack it up to 96,000 for the max frequency and see what we get there when we upload that. And of course, there is our bat vocalization. So if you wanted to look at it a little bit clearer and see some more details, let's go back to the audio settings and increase the X scale so we can see a little bit more stretched out in time what this vocalization looks like. And so there's a really beautiful, bat vocalization coming through. We can drag the spectrogram to look at it in a little more detail, and then it fades out. So this is a nice, really fantastic vocalization there. Again, a couple audio settings that I can show you that you'd like to change. If you want, you can amplify this, and let's switch to light mode just for the fun of it. So these will be those dynamic settings that you can change and how it'll affect the visibility of the spectrogram. Okay, so the idea here is that, I'm uploading media into the system, and what I could do technically is generate tags by just doing it manually within WildTrax. So I can, just like the birds, go onto the spectrogram, draw a box, and I can make an attempt at what this vocalization might be by adding a new tag within the system. So I can save that, it'll generate the box around the tag, and then give me it'll give me a whole bunch of statistics around, the the minimum frequency, maximum frequency of this box, the amplitude statistics around this box. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but when you make a tag in WildTrax, there's a whole bunch of information that comes out of this tag that gets generated. So that's the point of the box, really. For the time being, I'm just going to delete this because I'm going to show you another way of getting data within the system, which would be a little more in suite with how folks usually do it with the BAT processing. So I'm just going to go back to my project page here for a moment because I'd like to show you something here that has to do with what we're going to look at next. So from here, we have this manage button. And as I uploaded recordings to the project, there's a few other things I can do at the project level. So as I mentioned during the presentation, you can upload and download locations. You can also upload and download tasks. So this allows you to generate new tasks within the system. Perhaps if you already have media in WildTrax and they don't have tasks yet, you can generate them this way. Or if you'd like to batch edit any task, you can do it this way as well. Well, what we're going to be doing is looking at this download upload tags feature, because what we're going to be doing is taking some of the output that we receive from a classification software, and we're going to use that to upload the data and the tags into WildTrax automatically. Okay. So you can see here we have these 10 recordings that I've uploaded. And as we kind of like to pre-bake things before our presentations, I'm just going to show you something a little bit quickly here. Having to do with a workflow coming out of Kaleidoscope. So Kaleidoscope is a classification software that does include BAT classifications and auto IDs. So for those of you who are familiar with Kaleidoscope, this output should look fairly familiar. So this is all of my input files, all of the data that comes out from Kaleidoscope, as well as all the auto IDs. But you can see a lot of the data in here is quite similar to what we're going to be supporting in WildTrax, such as tag dimensions, so minimum frequency and maximum frequency, the auto IDs, etc. The only problem is that this output that comes from Kaleidoscope isn't quite set up and ready to go for a quick and easy process into WildTrax. So what we're going to be doing instead is using this convenience function that we've built in our R package, WildTrax, which will be available in the new year. But I'm just going to show you what it's going to do for the meantime. So the idea is that what I want to try to do is take that CSV output that I got from Kaleidoscope and turn it into something that WildTrax can take in order to generate tags. And so what we've done within our package WildTrax is create this convenience function called Kaleido tags. And there's only two arguments. It's your input and your output. So here I'm just feeding that CSV I just showed you into the function as my input. And I'm just going to return an output. And by just running this function here, it's going to generate this CSV for me. And as I open this up, you'll see here, this is what it's going to look like formatted to WildTrax. So I haven't actually changed much of anything from that Kaleidoscope output. I've just formatted the data so that it can be accepted through WildTrax for the media that I've already uploaded into the system. Okay, so you can see here some really familiar fields, of course, the location, the date and time it took place, some of the parameters that are associated with WildTrax, like the method and the task length, the species codes, and then I'm also taking some of the information that came from the Kaleidoscope output in order for me to generate my tags. So what I need at minimum is a start time. And we know that those start times are triggered at the start of the recording, so it'll be at the very beginning. The tag length, so how long that tag is going to be. And then the minimum and maximum frequency, so how tall is the box going to be. So now I have all my dimensions that I can draw a nice tag for each one of these, rows of data here. So what I'm going to do just for the sake of time is just remove some of these entries here because I don't want you guys to have to wait for all the uploads to happen, because sometimes when you can see these outputs coming from Kaleidoscope, you can have thousands and thousands of files and thousands of outputs. So for the time being, I'm just going to do this simple for everybody for now. But this would be an example of one where we got, about 10,000 outputs from the classifier, and we're looking to upload those, but I'm just going to do these 10 for now. So we'll just delete these. We'll simplify this tag upload a little bit, and I'm just going to change one field here really quickly because Excel's just not wanting to play nice right now. Okay, right, so everything is set up now, and I'm just going to really quickly show you side by side what we're looking at here. So I've got my CSV, and this is just before I upload anything. I've got my CSV here, and I've got my tags here that are coming from my WildTrax project. So you can see that everything aligns one-to-one now. I've got this 6.5-second recording on August 8th, August 4th of 2022 at 10:27 at night, and this is this row of data here. So this is going to be the task that the data is going to be uploaded to, which is represented here. And all the rest of this information has to do with the tag. So I'm going to have a tag at a start time of 0.1 seconds. It's going to be 3 seconds long, and it's going to have these frequency dimensions. Okay. I'm just going to save that for the moment. And then what we're going to do is then use the upload tags feature. So I clicked manage upload tags. Now I'm going to choose the CSV file that I'm looking to upload, which is just this one here. And then what it's going to do is a quality control process to ensure that all of the fields that I'm importing into WildTrax are correct. These are the correct tags, they're in the right place, it's all formatted. And so if you're doing this process and you do get some errors, please have a look at the messages for the errors to see if there's anything wrong while you're doing the upload here. Okay, so if everything worked correctly, it should say that it's inserting a new tag for the task. And then it will upload these into the system. So that now, if we go into these recordings, it should have a tag generated at each one of these places with the information that I provided it. So again, my default settings of my spectrogram at the project level were 0 to 12, so I have to change this to ultrasonic now. But you'll also notice that if I'm outside of the range of any tags when I'm using the dynamic settings in WildTrax, it's going to tell me that there's a tag out of bounds. So if you're ever tagging something and then you leave that frequency range for another one while you're processing data, it's going to give you a list of everything that you can't currently see because it's in another frequency range. So keep that in mind when you see that little warning here as well. All right, let's switch back to an ultrasonic frequency so we can see what we got here. And then here's my tag that was generated from the kaleidoscope output. Okay, so we have the start time and then all the minimum and maximum frequency dimensions that classifier output gave me. Okay, so now that these tags are generated in the system, what I can do is I can either do this at the task level or I can just switch these to transcribed. Now what transcribed is going to do is say, I finished this task, I've done all the tags that I need to do, and now I'm going to move on to species verification. And species verification is where you're going to be generating all of the verified outputs for the tags that you're going to be uploading and creating within your project. So I'll go back to my project page really quickly here for a second. Again, you'll see when I switch the status of those tasks within each one of those processing things, each one of the processings, they'll get transcribed here. And then any task that I currently go into that starts to get worked on will automatically switch to in progress. So you know you've started working on a task and that you're going to be finishing it eventually. So species verification, the idea here is that for any of the tags that get uploaded into WildTrax and into the project, species verification is going to aggregate all of the tags for that species vocalization type together within the project itself. So the idea here is by aggregating all those tags together, I can look at all of my little brown bats or big brown bats or eastern red bats all together, and then look at all of those tags together and then verify them in a very fast and efficient manner. So today I've only got a few tags obviously up in the system, and that when they are uploaded to species verification, you can then see the tags in batch here. So this is just one tag that I've transcribed and uploaded. But if I transcribed all of my recordings, you would see all of those tags that are here. So what species verification, the point of species verification is so that I can have a visualization of all these hundreds, if not thousands of tags all at once, that I can really quickly go in and either verify, which will allow me to check and confirm that this is, in fact, yes, it's an unknown bat. But if it's not an unknown bat and I wanted to change it, I had the ability to edit those tags as well. And you can edit in batch, you can edit hundreds of tags at a time, so that if your classifier output is telling you noise or unknown or perhaps a wrong species, you can change them all very quickly. So for example, here, if I wanted to change this to a different target species, I could look through the list I have. And just for fun, I'm going to call this a long-eared myotis. Not sure if that's correct or not. And I can change all the information about that tag if I need to as well. So vocalization type, abundance, and I can also verify the tag if I'm trying to confirm that it is in fact a long-eared. The other feature that we have now available in species verification is the notify tag creator button. And this is super useful if you're trying to give feedback on certain people that are processing data, or if you're changing any of the data that they've produced, how they can go back and check and see what you've changed via a notification. So I'll submit this, and then as I've changed this, this is of course going to switch it over to a long ear now, so it's no longer an unknown bat. And then if I return to species verification, I can then see that species row now in the verification panel. So again, just like tasks, you can assign verification tasks to different people. So if you want, one person to check all the little browns and one person to check all the long-eareds, you can do that. And assign accordingly based on the users that you add to this project. So this is kind of a really quick look at a workflow of getting just from raw media to data within the system, to tags, to verification. And we'll pretend that we've finished all of our project and we've verified all the species that we've done. And now what we can do is now push the project to a published status. And what this published status is going to do is allow users who aren't members of the project to see the project and the data as you choose to. So within the project settings here, I'm just going to go to the status field now and look at the different statuses that I have available. So when a project is not published, it's just active, which means you're working on it. Nobody can see it except for users of the project or the organization. But these are your 4 published statuses that you can choose from. So private means that it's private and nobody will see it except you and the users of the project or the organization. Public is the exact opposite. If you switch to public, everybody can see everything. Map plus report is what you would use when you want to show points on a map and allow people to download the data, but you don't want them to have access to your media. So this is only allowing people to download the data, but not being able to go see the recordings or the tags and that sort of thing. And published map is only showing the locations on a map. So you give the ability for users to see it on a map, but they can't download the report and they can't access the media. So these are just just the different states that you can publish the project as. But if I do publish it publicly and I update the status of this project, and we go back to the project dashboard, you'll see now my project has been published publicly, which I can see here. So if you were a non-member of this project, you'd be able to see it in the dashboard. But more importantly, if you were a non-user and also you weren't even logged into the system, you could actually find this project in 2 different places on the data output. One would be data discover, so being able to see everything that you've produced for public data as well as your own together within the system. So I'll just select my webinar project here, select the species, search, and then data discover will tell me all the different places where this project found little brown bats on the map here. So I can click this for more information. I can then go down to the results panel and I can see the project, but I can also then go to the tasks where that media exists if the project is published publicly. So I could click on this little tab and then go right back to the thing where I found my species. Of course, this is still out of bounds for spectrograms, but you get the idea. Now, the last place where you'll be able to find data, especially if you published it publicly, is in data downloads. So you can go to data downloads here, select ARU as the sensor type. I can search for my webinar project again. and then I can download this data. And this download would basically supply you a whole bunch of CSV reports of the tags, the tasks, the recordings, and a basic summary of everything that was found in the project as well. So what you've basically done from start to finish with me here today is run through creating an organization and getting started up with WildTrax and being able to publish your data publicly in less than half an hour. So really happy to have been able to show you guys all that today. And if there's any questions, I would be happy to take them now. So thanks a lot for listening to me, and yeah, appreciate your time.